Tata Steel. And Tata Steel, we know, are already certified, both their plants, if I'm not wrong, both Jamshedpur and Kalinganagar now. So from that perspective, how are you? There are two questions. One is that what are the kind of challenges that you are facing today, being a very established steel plant in India, for adoption of various technologies in your existing, operations? Because not just the existing, even the announced capacities in India are in the beer route, mostly on the ISP side. So how are you going to cover this or doing this now? And the second question is that there is always the cost pressure, that who is going to bear the cost of this additional investment. So from that perspective, how are you bearing with this tension between the cost pressures vis-a-vis the ESG goals or the scores that you want to achieve as a company?
Thank you very much. And both the questions are very apt and for not only for Tata Steel but steel industry in general. And there is it's not different for us as a company. And just before answering to your specific questions, we should also understand the Indian context, and maybe at the cost of repetition. We all know that India is growing at a rate of say 10% or thereabout, and will continue to do that, which no other geography would do. Either people are maintaining their production capacities, or even in many cases it is going down. Unlike that, in India we will need more steel. And in fact, when in 2017 steel policy was announced, all of us were very skeptical whether we would reach 200 million tons or 180 by now. But the way we are going, I think 300 million ton will also be surpassed by 2030-31. And because that is needed. Now the twin set of challenges that we have to grow at the same time. There is a huge pressure on all of us on decarbonization, and we know that that's an existential question. It is not that we have a choice that whether it is going to be reduced or not. If as an industry we have to survive and grow, then this has to happen. This is no more a good to have thing. So that is where it is. Now in terms of the challenges, or in terms of the opportunities that we see, one of course is you spoke about scrap-based steel making. So we know for certain things, even if it is not value accretive, but knowing the trajectory in which we are going, and because the theme of this seminar is carbon credit trading scheme, and we are seeing that this is going to come. If not today, maybe tomorrow. Already Government of India has announced. So there would be a price on carbon. So for selection of technology, for investment decisions, these would also impact all the choices very much in say years to come. With our presence in Europe, we have seen that it is only a matter of time before it hits into India also. So it may look like a decision which would say not generate margins or enough margin compared to conventional way of making steel. But we know, and we knew, therefore in 2018 we went to Rohtak, set up a steel recycling business. Now we are setting up a electric arc furnace in Ludhiana, which if all goes well, should get commissioned before this end of this financial year. We will have a emission intensity of 1/6 of conventional BF-BOF route. Of course, there is a limitation that this will be smaller in scale. It may not have say sort of easy supply chain as we see in terms of scrap, etc. What can be done? And there was another question which was part of your initial presentation, that what different stakeholders should do and who would pay for it. So In fact, everyone has got a role. Just to take scrap as an example, when we started getting into it, it might look like a very, very sort of easily available solution, but we all know that how difficult it is to sort of organize this sector, because scrap is a very, very unorganized sector. We all know what are the issues there. Their government has a role to create right policy framework. I'm happy that some work has been done. I would say industry also has, if not more, at least similar kind of role where if you want support from government or if you want support from our customers for the low carbon steel, so industry also has to play and operate in a very, very responsible way, so that there is a trust and policies can support us. So I think those are the things which are needed going forward. There are many technologies which are being worked in terms of how to address the existing operations and BOF route, because we all know that scale would come from blast furnace route. That's a given thing. And I don't want to take everyone's time, and there are some work which is also going, which is at a different technology readiness level, so need not spend time on that. As we know, for all these things, suppose if you are working on 10 ideas, maybe 1 or 2 will click, not all of that will happen at a commercially viable solution. But multiple things are being worked at, because we have also set a very, very stiff target for us as a company to become net zero by 2045. So then we have to work backwards, and that is where we are. So in terms of challenges, etc., those are going to be there, but we are committed, and some of the steps for short term and some of the steps for long term are being taken. And eventually, I think there is no easy answer to this question, and it's a very, very complex subject. We are seeing this in Western world, in European setup, how difficult it is going to be there. And very soon we will also start facing that. I think, to me, CCTS would be one important policy enabler, which will put a price on carbon. Just to give the example, like Tata Steel, suppose, has 3 major production facilities in India, now at different emission levels. However, steel is priced same coming out of all the 3 facilities. So how do you incentivize somebody to bring down the emission, or how do you put a price on carbon? I think it may not have solution to everything, but should take us into the right direction. So I'll just stop there, and if there is any follow-up.
And I know we are at the top of the hour and we need to finish the session quickly, but there could be a couple of questions from the audience which can be, debated on. But before that, I had a final thought as a consultant working in this sector, that I believe that a lot of companies, out of the pressure from the ecosystem, in order to be perceived as quote unquote green, okay, are adopting various methods, whether utilization of more scrap, whether adoption of RE and multiple other things. But I do believe that efforts are being done in silos. And one of the things that I feel, that whether we need an R&D fund in place, okay, MOS in particular has done a few things, 13 task forces, the taxonomies have been clearly defined now, which is a good step to start with. But in terms of the technology evolution that every company, either with some of the IITs or other educational institutions that people are trying to resolve on, whether we can have a common platform for R&D and innovation, specifically focused on decarbonization in metals, may not be in steel in particular, there will be aluminum story as well. Whether we need a fund for that, number one. And secondly, whether we need a VGF, viability gap funding, especially for the initial years, where we know for a fact that there will be delta additional cost. The mechanism, etc., need to be worked out. It's easy to say, but we need to figure that out. Whether that is an important question on the table. Anybody would like to throw light on that?
So you refer to 13 task forces made by the Ministry of Steel, and there's a body called, it's not a new one, Steel Research Technology Mission of India, SRTMI, which is sort of getting revived. Idea is that Ministry of Steel would put in some money, member companies would put in some money, and some projects which are say will solve say, high impact ideas, etc., that can be worked through academia, through institutions, etc. That model is being thought of now. It's a good idea, and also if you look at Europe, there are innovation funds and other examples are there. Governments also coming in to support through grants or other things which will lower the carbon emission, etc. But there are different challenges, and as we speak, Tata Steel, and not only Tata Steel, all steel companies are working with different institutes, etc., in terms of to fund R&D projects. The challenge of this idea of pulling in money, doing it together, are three. One is that how to build a consensus on which are the projects to be undertaken. Because something which I think is important, somebody else would say, so there would be say 10, 20, 30 projects, and on the face of it, you can find that everything is important, but everything important cannot be done. So how to prioritize that, it becomes a challenge if there are, if there's a collective fund and common project. Second, how do you share the IP? Who owns the IP? And how do you do that? So those are the technical issues there. But I think the need for R&D, whether it is done at a collective level or at individual level, is well underscored. And I think it is gaining a lot of traction, and we will see more in times to come.
I think, yeah, I do agree, but at the same time, I feel that R&D is not just for steel or metals, but R&D is a neglected area for India at large. Okay, we talk a lot of things theoretically, but we don't practice that in terms of getting to the solutions in reality. And whereas every company is investing money to resolve, okay, or get to, I understand the challenge on IP, but if you take the example of Australian mining industry, the industry at large and all the big players, along with some of the key institutes like Queensland University and others, they are working together. Whereas the industry is throwing problems on the table and funding. These are the two things they are doing, and the institutes are trying to resolve the issues over a period of time, okay, and taking up ground level R&D projects about the issues that is being faced by the plants. So the commonality of issues at the end of the day can be arrived at, provided there is an appreciation that yes, similar kind of issues are being faced by companies without compromising their internal IP of how they run the plant and all that stuff. Something may have to be worked out. Otherwise, the timeline is probably something that we are working against is going to be stiffer.
Sorry, I will just take half a minute and see. There was one suggestion that Government of India is also coming out with a lot of fund allocation. Last budget also we heard about it. Suppose I'm just staying with Ministry of Steel because we work with them. Some grant was given. One model could be that this entire money is given to a reputed institute, no industry in between. Let them work on a particular problem. They own the IP, and rather than industry getting it for free, will have to pay the license fee, etc. That could be one solution. So there are ways. I think SRTMI is getting revived, and I'm very hopeful that in this financial year something will come up.